Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with a comparison. I guess you could call it a shootout if you want. This is between two headphones of exactly the same price. One is the Apos Audio Caspian, and the other is the Hifiman Edition XS. Both of these headphones sell for $499, and that's why I decided to do this comparison before I've got to send the Apos back tomorrow. So anyway, both of these sell for exactly the same price, but they're two completely different headphones. They're very much different. So I'll start out with a bit of a comparison of the specifications and that sort of thing, and then I'll get into the sound of these. But like I said, I would say it's more of a comparison than really a shootout. I'm not trying to find a winner here because these are two very different headphones and they're going to be for two different people, or possibly one person might want to have both and have a variety, a completely different sound depending on your mood, depending on what kind of music you're listening to. So anyway, I'll get into this. The Apos was made by Kennerton Audio Equipment for Apos. It's called the Caspian, and this was made in St. Petersburg, Russia. And then the Hifiman is made in China. They're both wired, they're both full size, they're both over ear, and both are open back headphones. The Apos uses a 50 millimeter dynamic driver, and the Hifiman uses a planar magnetic driver with stealth magnets. The Apos has an impedance of 33 ohms, and the Hifiman Edition XS has an impedance of 18 ohms. And the sensitivity on the Apos is 115 decibels at 1 milliwatt, where the Edition XS is only 92 decibels at 1 milliwatt. So the Hifiman, with it having such a low impedance of 18 ohms, it would be easy to assume that it's really easy to drive. And the fact is, it's not that easy because 92 decibels is not that efficient. So it actually takes about the same amount of power as the Hifiman Sundara. So you need a pretty decent amp. You need either a good portable amp that's capable of putting out a little bit of power, or a decent desktop amp. I mean, it's not extremely power hungry, but the Sundara is known as needing a decent amp, and it comes in just about the same. I plugged the two in, went back and forth, and they seem to need about the same amount of power. Where the Apos has a higher impedance at 33 ohms, but an extremely efficient 115 decibels at 1 milliwatt. So the Apos is actually far easier to drive and should be compatible with any portable, probably any phone, and doesn't take much of an amp to drive it. I mean, you can drive the Apos with almost anything. Apos claims a weight of 378 grams on the Caspian, and Hifiman claims a weight of 405 grams on the Edition XS. And I can't remember the exact numbers from when I measured them or weighed them, but I think both were pretty close to what I came up with on my scale. They both have detachable cables, and I did want to show you the cables because there's a lot of difference in the cables on these. First of all, the Hifiman uses 3.5 millimeter connections at the headphone end, and the cable that comes with it is actually, I think, identical to the cable that comes with the Sundara. And I've heard more than one complaint about it. Sound-wise, I think it's fine. It's about 5 feet long. It has a rubber covering, and it's more than adequate, but it's not the highest quality cable out there. I mean, I did have one go bad on my Sundara. This was like 3 years ago. One of the connectors had problems at the headphone end, but all it took was a call to Hifiman, and I had a new one in the mail in less than a week. So they are good about, their customer service is good about things like that. But anyway, it's just your basic cable. Has 3.5 millimeter connection at the amp end with a 6.3 millimeter adapter, and it's real flexible and soft, but like I said, it's a rubber material. The cable that comes with the Apos, on the other hand, is about 2 meters long. It has a nice cloth covering. It's a little bit more stiff, but it's just definitely a nicer cable. There's no comparison. It has very nice connection, although it does only have a 6.3 millimeter connection. So if you want to use it for a portable, you're probably, unless you have a portable device with a 6.3 millimeter headphone jack, which I don't think a lot do, you might have to get another cable to use it with a portable device. But anyway, it has a nice connection at that end. And then the Apos uses 4-pin mini XLRs at the headphone end of the cable, which is unusual in a headphone at this price. I don't think I've ever seen a headphone probably under $1,000 that used the 4-pin mini XLR. So this headphone does come with a really nice cable. And then also, the Apos does come with a pretty nice case. It's your standard Kennerton case that comes with all Kennerton headphones now. And it's a synthetic leather, but it is nice, and it holds your headphones and your cables and everything inside. The Hifiman just comes with the box it comes in. It doesn't come with any kind of case at all. Getting into build quality, they both seem to be fine. I don't see any, no sloppiness, nothing about the Hifiman that doesn't look good as far as build quality. The Apos the build quality appears to be excellent, but it was made by Kennerton, and I've reviewed several Kennerton headphones, and the build quality always is exceptional with Kennerton. That's just how they are. They do not build things of low quality as far as I'm concerned. The materials, the Hifiman uses a lot of plastic. The ear pads are nice, they're soft, they're comfortable, but they are a synthetic leather with a cloth on the inside. They are tapered. As you can see, you've got your 3.5 millimeter connections. But and the yokes are metal, but I think the headband and the pads are all synthetic leather, which, I don't have an issue with that, but it is less expensive to produce. But they have a lot of plastic. You got plastic up here on your sliders. You've got the ear cups are plastic. I believe the grills are plastic, and but that does hold down weight. But the Apos somehow comes in even lighter, and the Apos is using real wooden ear cups, and this is not just a veneer. This is a solid piece of, I believe I don't remember if this is walnut or oak. I think it's an oak, but it's machined out of a solid piece, and the grills are aluminum, and the yokes I think are aluminum, and then the ear pads, which are not tapered on this one, but they are real lambskin leather, and the headband is real lambskin leather also. I think the inside of it's synthetic, but the top of it is real leather. So build quality and materials, in my opinion, the Apos has it all over the Hifiman, but here you can see the headphone connections here are the 4-pin mini XLR, which, like I said, that's something I don't think I've seen on a headphone under $1,000. Getting into comfort, they're both very comfortable in my opinion. The Apos is actually slightly lighter, but neither one of them is an issue at all as far as weight is I'm concerned. The clamping force feels just about right on the Apos. The weight's well distributed. The ear pads are very soft. They actually have a memory foam in them. And so comfort's not an issue at all. I did want to mention, and I forgot to put it down in my notes, but I just thought of it, so I'm going to throw it in right here, that as far as isolation, These are both considered to be open back headphones, but in my opinion, the Caspian is more of a semi-open back. I don't think it's open as much as you see here in the grills as it looks like it is. I think inside the grills are smaller open areas. And to be honest, this headphone, like I said, it seems like sort of a semi-closed back to me. It actually isolates some of the sound from outside better than most open backs, and it actually holds some of the sound in. Where the Hifiman doesn't keep any outside sound out, and it doesn't keep any inside sound from getting out, doesn't keep it in. So actually, as far as isolation, the Apos being sort of a semi-open back does a lot better. Where am I at? Let's get into the sound of this. I've used up enough time already. I want to talk about the sound. Okay, I'm going to start with tone balance. The Hifiman I would describe as being almost neutral. It has a very linear, very flat tone balance, and the only place I see it vary from neutral is just a little bit of slight emphasis in the mid bass, and I'm not talking a lot. An example of what I would consider neutral would be the Hifiman Sandara, and this headphone does have a little bit more bass, a little more weight to the bass than the Sandara. I would say you'd probably have to give the Sandara about a 3 or 4 decibel boost in the bass to be on the same level. So I would say basically Hifiman Edition XS neutral with a slight emphasis in the bass. The Apos Caspian, this is where these headphones vary a huge amount between each other. The Apos is not a neutral headphone. It has a significant emphasis to the bass, especially the mid bass. It has a substantial dip in the lower treble, like between about 2,000 to 4,000 hertz, and then it has a peak at about 7,000, which does give it pretty good sparkle at that point, but then it rolls off after that. So the Apos is far from being neutral, where the Hifiman is almost perfectly neutral. The extension, and I'm talking about the extension into the sub bass and the treble. I'll start with the Apos. The Apos has good extension into the sub bass, but not a whole lot of extension into the treble. Like I said a minute ago, it has a peak at about 7,000. Then after that, it sort of rolls off. So I would say the upper treble definitely rolls off in the Apos. Excuse me. Anyway, the Hifiman has good extension into the sub bass. It does extend better than the Sandara, and it has very good extension into the treble. I don't hear any roll off at all in the treble on the Edition XS. Okay, starting with bass. The Apos has a heavy emphasis to the bass. It has very strong bass. It has a lot of weight to the sub bass and even more weight to the mid bass, and has the bass is very well controlled though. It's tight, it's solid, it doesn't sound muddy. Occasionally it can get a little muddy on some songs, but I think that's just more the recording than the headphone, because it's emphasizing what's on the recording. So if the recording has bass that's a little muddy, you're going to hear it on the Apos. But basically solid bass with a lot of weight to it, a lot of slam to it. This is a headphone a bass head can love. The Hifiman has very decent bass. It goes low into the sub bass. The sub bass is definitely there, but it's not really emphasized. The mid bass has a little bit of an emphasis to it. It's tight, it's well controlled, never muddy, never distorted, but more on a neutral level. So the Hi-Fi, if you're a bass head looking for a ton of bass, Hifiman probably isn't the headphone for you, and you probably know this by now. I mean, Hifiman, most of their headphones are pretty close in their tone balance. So if you're a bass head, the Apos is probably gonna make you happier than the Hi-Fi Man. The mids, I'll start with the Apos. The mids on the Apos, they set back a little bit, and like I said earlier, there is a substantial dip in the tone balance from about 2,000 hertz to 6,000, and I realize that's sort of starting in the upper mids, getting into the lower treble, but so the upper mids, there is a pretty good dip there, which sets the mids back a bit, and they still sound good. They're just a little more distance, where the Hi-Fi Man, the mids are a lot more up front, a lot more in your face, just sort of on a level. They don't have that V shape. There's no dip to it. They're, like I said, the tone balance is just pretty much flat on the Hi-Fi Man, so the mids are going to be a lot more present on the Hi-Fi Man. The treble, starting with the Apos. The treble, like I said, there's a dip in the lower treble, then a peak at about 7,000, which does give a good sparkle. It brings out cymbals and things like that, bells, chimes, that sort of thing, but then it drops off again above 7,000. So if what you're hearing, the instrument, whatever, hits right at 7,000 hertz, it's very present. But if it's below that or lower or higher than that, it can sound kind of distant. And to me, I feel like I'm missing a little bit, because some of the treble, I just feel like it's just it's not present enough. It's just a little bit too distant to me. So compared to the Hi-Fi Man, the treble all the way through is very linear, and you don't miss out on anything. The treble is all there. There aren't any big dips or any big spikes or anything like that. So whatever's on the recording as far as treble, you're going to hear it on the Hi-Fi Man. And I know some people consider Hi-Fi Man headphones to be a little bit on the bright side, but maybe because I'm older, maybe, my hearing has changed over the years, but I really like Hi-Fi Man treble. It's just about right for me. It's a little bit on the bright side compared to most headphones, but I enjoy it that way. I hear a lot of detail in the treble on the Hi-Fi Man headphones. So getting into detail and resolution, both headphones have good detail and resolution. Neither one is really lacking, but the Hi-Fi Man does beat out the Apos as far as detail, especially I would say in the upper mid-range and lower treble, where that's where the Apos is kind of distant and set back. And I don't think the Apos is really lacking detail in that area. It's just distant, so it's not in your face, where the Hi-Fi Man doesn't have that dip, and the upper mid-range and lower treble are a lot more in your face, a lot more present, so it just seems to have a lot more detail because it doesn't have that dip in the frequency. And then the same thing going into the treble. Where the Apos has that narrow peak at about 7,000, the Hi-Fi Man's more of a flat, tone balance through the treble, and there's nothing missing. So I hear a lot more detail in everything from the mid-range all the way into the treble, especially into the upper treble with the Hi-Fi Man. The Apos, though, the bass is very good on it, and there is a lot of detail and texture in the bass. So, because it's emphasized, you hear more detail in it, where the Hi-Fi Man, the bass is just kind of neutral, so it's not as in your face as the Apos is. Soundstage, both headphones have a pretty good soundstage. They both have pretty good width, not exceptional, they're both average. Neither one has exceptional depth. I'd actually say probably the Apos has a little bit more depth to the soundstage, just slightly more, but the Hi-Fi Man has a little more height, and the reason for that, I believe, is because it has the same shape ear cups as the Aria, with the long, the tall ear cups, it just gives more height. You hear sounds from down lower to way up high with the Apos, with the Hi-Fi Man. So like the Aria, it does have a lot of height to the Soundstage. Imaging, I would say both headphones are good. Neither one is exceptional. They both have very good separation between the instruments, and they both, I have no trouble locating the instruments. Just neither one of them is exceptionally pinpoint. I'd probably give a little bit of it advantage to the Hi-Fi Man in that department, but and that could once again be because of the upper mids and lower treble being kind of distant on the Apos, that the imaging just doesn't seem quite as precise. Everything's a little further away and a little bit harder to locate, where, the Hi-Fi Man, like I said, it's up real close and it's easy to pinpoint where things are coming from. Dynamics, definite advantage for the Apos. The Apos is very dynamic, very hard hitting, where the Edition XS just has sort of a soft sound to it. I'm not saying that's bad, it's just not a real dynamic headphone. And the 400 SE from Hi-Fi Man is sort of the same way. And I think the older Arias, the version 1 and version 2, I would describe the dynamics as being a little bit on the soft side with those two, where the newer Aria, the version 3, the Stealth, actually has is very dynamic, has a lot of slam to it. The Arias, though, it had a lot to do with power. The first two were pretty power hungry, and if you gave them enough power, they became more dynamic. And it's kind of the same thing with the Edition XS. If you have an amp that has adequate power, it does get more dynamic, has more slam, more weight to the bass. But the Apos, probably because it's so efficient, even with, the smallest amp, the lowest powered amp, it still sounds dynamic and punchy, just because it's so efficient, I think, is the reason. Listening fatigue. Both headphones are good as far as being low in listening fatigue. I'll start with the Hi-Fi Man. It has sort of a little bit on the warm side of neutral, mid-range, and vocals sound kind of warm. So it's really pretty low in fatigue, but the Apos with that big dip, and apparently when that headphone was tuned, that was the idea, was putting this dip in the upper mids from like 2,000 to 6,000 hertz was to lower fatigue. That was the reason they did it. This was done deliberately. And it does, it serves its purpose. It is a very low fatigue headphone because of those frequencies being set back. In my opinion, they went a little bit too far. I think the dip is a little bit too much, and I feel like I'm lacking some detail in that range, but it does make it very low fatigue and very easy to listen to for a long period of time. Where the Hi-Fi Man, even though it does have some warmth and no harshness or anything in the mid-range, it's still low fatigue, but not as low as the Apos. As far as forgiveness of a less than perfect recording, obviously the Hi-Fi Man with a much more upfront, upper mid-range and lower treble, that's where you're going to hear hiss, background hiss, things like that. You're going to hear a lot of distortions in that range. So obviously the Hi-Fi Man will reveal imperfections in the recording a lot more so than the Apos will. The Apos with that big dip is going to give you a blacker sounding background, because if there's any hiss in the recording, it's going to fall into that dip. I'm not sure exactly where hiss falls. I'm guessing probably around 5,000, 6,000 hertz. I'm not sure, but it's in the middle of that dip. And because of that dip, if there's hiss in the background of the recording, it's going to be tuned down to a level you're probably not going to hear it. So it kind of gives you the impression of a blacker background. So the Hi-Fi Man is kind of average as far as forgiveness. And the Apos is definitely one of the better headphones I've heard as far as being forgiving of less than perfect recordings. Also, if a recording's sort of lacking bass or sub bass, the Apos is going to give it some emphasis and bring it out. I know a lot of older rock music, that sort of thing. If you listen to it on a neutral headphone, it just sounds really flat and boring because of the lack of bass, and the Apos brings that out. So I would say, the Hi-Fi Man's going to sound great with good recordings, but the Apos is definitely going to be more forgiving of your less than perfect recordings. Accuracy, got to give that one to the Hi-Fi Man by a long range. The Hi-Fi Man is a very neutral headphone, very flat tone response. Like I said, just a little bit of emphasis in the bass, but very accurate. It's going to bring out what's on the recording. The Apos, not so much. Heavy emphasis in the bass, dip in the upper mids, narrow peak in the treble. Not the most accurate headphone. Fun factor. That one's going to the Apos. Apos, especially if you're a bass head, all that bass and good sounding bass, good tight controlled bass, just makes music a lot of fun. I mean, especially like older rock music, things like that. I was listening to Rush Moving Pictures with the Apos, and it just really brought out the bass guitar and the bass drums, that sort of thing. Just gave them a lot of weight, a lot of emphasis, just made it sound really good. I listened to the same thing with the Hi-Fi Man, and it sounded, there was a lot less presence to the bass guitar, to the drums. It sounded kind of boring, but it did have quite a bit more detail up in the upper mid-range, lower treble, all the way through the treble. I mean, the bells, the chimes and everything that Rush uses a lot of just were a lot more present on the Hi-Fi Man. So, what does it come down to? I like both of these headphones. I mean, I'll be honest, the Hi-Fi Man is probably more my cup of tea. I lean more towards a neutral headphone, but I'm not taking anything away from the Apos. It's a great headphone at the right time, the right music. I really like it with rock and dance music and things like that, and it can be a lot of fun. So it's a fun headphone to have around. If I was only going to have one headphone, I would probably pick the Hi-Fi Man, but if I've got a neutral headphone, the Apos would be a good addition to my collection, when I'm in the mood to, listen to some music with some heavy bass. I mean, I used to have a car with two 15-inch subwoofers in it, and it would, the bass was incredible. And the Apos, I can put it on and listen to those same songs I listened to back then. This is like, 35 years ago. It's amazing I can still hear, but anyway, I don't listen to music like that loud anymore. I try to protect my hearing now. But anyway, the Apos can duplicate that sound, that thumping sound that I had in my car with the big subwoofers, where no Hi-Fi Man headphone I've ever heard can even come close. So, comes down to, if you want a neutral, accurate headphone, the Hi-Fi Man is definitely the right choice. If you want something, if you're a bass head, you want some heavy emphasis in the bass, you want a fun headphone, the Hi-Fi Man probably isn't going to do it for you. The Apos just might be the right headphone for you. If you like the Meza 99 Classic, which is an extremely popular headphone, a lot of people like that headphone. If you like that, you will probably love the Apos Caspian. Sounds very similar, but with even more emphasis on the bass, tighter, more controlled bass, and similar mid-range and treble. But in my opinion, it just does what the Meza 99 Classic does, but does it a little better. So if that's a headphone you like, you will probably really like the Caspian. So anyway, there's my comparison. I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you are all welcome to join us at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We're up to, I believe, about 16.3 thousand members. So hope to see you there. Once again, thanks for watching my video.